Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being.
Welcome to the 168th episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast. And this month's theme is all about nutrition and mental health. And to join me this week is Dr. Amanda Adkins. Dr. Amanda Adkins is a board-certified internal medicine physician, health coach, owner of Enlightenment Health and Wealth. She has a deep passion for ensuring that everyone has a chance at healthy and a happy life. Her most recent focus has been to help women who are overweight prevent and possibly reverse chronic illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. Both through her medical and personal experience, she shows how our lifestyle can lead to remarkable changes in our health and our ability to fulfill God's will for our lives. And she became interested in helping women prevent chronic disease because she was an overweight teenager who wanted better for her life than to feel defeated by weight. There's a lot of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer in her family, and she knew if she didn't change, she would end up with some, if not all, of these illnesses. And it's great to be joined by someone from the US who can talk about this from a US African-American perspective. And we're going to be delving deeper into the connection between physical health, mental health, racism, and healing through food. So Amanda, a huge welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate it because we were just talking and I know it's 7 a.m. your time. So again, it's not always the easiest on a Friday morning to get up, be incredibly presentable and come on a show. So I really appreciate that.
Yes. I'm actually more of a morning person. So that's why I like to get up and get the day started and go. So no worries about it being so early.
So I've just read out your bio, Amanda, but I think it's really great for listeners to hear. What are you working on at the moment? What projects do you have in the pipeline?
So currently I'm working on a 6-week program. I actually have ladies going through that now where we help women who are overweight prevent and reverse chronic illnesses. So their main focus is to help with their blood pressure, diabetes, or weight, and then just to be overall healthier.
Brilliant. And on that, I'd love to know, I think it'd be really great for people to know, what was your journey to becoming a doctor of internal medicine?
Oh, yes. So it's a decades in progress, I tell people. So I actually wanted to become a physician from the age of 12 in 6th grade health class. And a lot of people will say, when they want to be a doctor, they want to help people. And I was like, well, yeah, we all want to help people, but that wasn't my original thought when I first learned about the human body. So I have to give a shout out to my 6th grade teacher for making it more interactive. So this was before, technology and everything that we have today. So he had a picture of a heart and the vascular system on the ground on like a little map. And the students, so me included, had to walk in a line of how the blood flowed through the body. And I just thought that was amazing of how the human body worked. And from then on, I was like, I want to, become a physician to actually learn how this human body works and how to help people with different disease states. So we go from that to, you have to graduate high school and everything there and into med school, which people describe that as trying to drink out of a fire hydrant. So it's just like blows your mind about everything in the human body, but it's still all fascinating. And sometimes you get bogged down with everything that's going on there, but it still is very enlightened progress and process. And then you go through residency, which is another hard thing. I know now that they have, TV shows that show that it's not as cheerful and as 30 minutes or an hour wrap up that it actually is made to be seen. It's a very hard, grueling process. But they changed it to the 80-hour work weeks. But you learn a lot. You meet a lot of different people. And it's just fascinating to see. And then going on there from training into actually being what we call attending. So you graduated, you passed all your exams and all the exams that you have to take and continue to take. And it just was, hard, but rewarding at the same time. Especially now when you're out talking to patients and especially for me being an African American female, where I actually get patients and they come in, they see me, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, I never had an African American doctor. I'm so glad that you're here." And just to understand that more from what they're coming from, because I didn't come from a family that was in the healthcare space at all. I'm the first person there, especially to be a physician in my family. And it was just, eye-opening because, growing up, I just thought, from sixth grade, I'll do this. But the pride that it brings to my family and also to my community to come back and help them in different ways is more rewarding than I thought in sixth grade that it would be.
Oh, that's really lovely to hear. And just something on terminology. So residency in the UK would be sort of the junior doctor, or when you're at university doing your medicine. And then the next stage, I suppose it's junior doctor stroke registrar that you're talking about, just so people know, Amanda.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you so much. And I think, yeah, the medical journey across the globe is very arduous, whichever country you're in. And of course, we have different healthcare systems, mix of private and public around the globe. So yeah, thank you. And that is a beautiful story when you said, because I walk into a room and if I see, in the UK, there are lots of doctors that look like me, but also, British Black doctors as well. My heart does soar because I do feel a lot safer in that space.
Yes.
So, of course, your work started in this because you talked about being, in your bio, I talked about you being you identified as being overweight as a teenager, and how there is a lot of heart disease, diabetes, and specific diseases that we often see in Black, global majority, and diaspora communities in the global North and West. And I also wanted to ask you, so we know about the physical side, but what about the connection between mental health and mental ill health, culture and nutrition? So yeah, what else have you seen with that connection, as well as the internal health?
Yes. So that's, I would say, newer for me, because most time people come in and we talk about mostly the physical. But the more that I dig into learning about what I'm studying for lifestyle medicine now, is the more I see how the mental and emotional part actually plays a role. And it actually plays a huge role in physical health too, because if a lot of people are, anxious, depressed, or stressed, then their physical health definitely takes a toll also. So with even just mental health for depression, anxiety, stress, that there's been several studies that show that eating more fruits and vegetables actually improve mood for these clients or patients or people in general, and that eating fast food or foods that are high in sugar, highly processed food, actually increases your risk for depression or makes your depression or anxiety worse. So I usually tell people you eat whole food for the whole body. So whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, that it helps in every aspect. So that's what I love about, plant-based nutrition, is because you can't just single it out and say, oh, you eat this for a certain thing or this for that certain thing. Because there's the fruits and vegetables have so many different nutrients and things in there that it helps with all these different aspects in your body. And so usually you can't go wrong if you're eating fruits and vegetables, because you will feel better in so many ways. So the more I learn, the more I'm just fascinated. Like I said, from my sixth grade story, the human body is amazing. So the more I see how it actually all intertwines, it continues to fascinate me, which continues to make me a lifelong learner.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, if anyone wants to check out the first episode for the series, I talk about some of the research that's been done. There have been lots of studies, different scales as well, but we know more research needs to be done in this area. And I also wanted to ask you about racism and mental ill health actually in diet, because of course, if people are treated in a particular way, it could be overtly, it could be covertly, it can be the presentation of barriers, not being able to achieve what you want to. And often we turn to comfort food, which we feel great at the time eating, whether it's donuts or processed pizza, not homemade pizza, and then the impact it has on our mental well-being. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, with your patients and your own lived experience of racism and, the benefits of cooking and nutrition it doesn't solve things, but as a form of self-soothing and as a form of protection for our mental well-being.
Yeah, so whenever we're stressed, I'll just tell you a story about how I used to actually cope with stress from, residency through med school and attending, because like I said, being African American female physician, you definitely feel that even within the healthcare system from like colleagues and people that are over you. And it's just, it can be definitely pulling on your mental health. You wonder if you belong. You start to have, those feelings of depression, feeling of anxiety and stress that come into just showing up for the workplace to see if that's going to be a place that you can thrive in. And I was an avid, I say Coca-Cola drinker, going through residency and even my first few years as an attending. And I would call my sister and say, it's a Coke type of day. I would stock Coca-Cola and have it there. And that was, like you said, my soothing thing because it tasted good on my in my mouth. Knowing it was not doing good for my physical or mental health, because I still would feel those symptoms of feeling anxious and depressed. And the more I transition out of that, the quicker I can come out of that. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily change how you feel all the time when you just have that weight on you all the time. But it definitely can improve your sense of optimism. And knowing that it's not necessarily you that has the problem, it's more outside. And the more you can take care of yourself, the more likely that you're able to strive and thrive in this community. And when you have that feeling of feeling depressed or stressed from what do we call it? The governments are, institutional racism. That's what it is, to where it's like built into the systems. And where people may feel like, we don't have that anymore in the United States, where we're actually seeing that that's not the case, because people would think that you're just crazy when you bring things up. But definitely, like I said, if you improve your own mental health, you actually have the higher optimism. You're more likely to be productive and realize that the more you're in community, that it's not your issue, it's the outside issue. And you're just, some people are there to bring it more to the forefront, and it can actually help you out in the long term to be able to talk about that. And I'm glad you brought that up, so people know that it still exists and that you're not feeling crazy. Because again, me going through the medical school and system, sometimes you feel like you don't belong, and they make you feel like you don't belong. And that takes a huge toll on you long term. And like I said, I'm just now getting over some of the things that would happen from med school and residency, because you're like, oh my gosh, what in the world's going on? I never was treated this way. But you just realize that was going on at the time. And again, it wasn't me, it was more of them. So
yeah, thank you, Amanda. And it's really hard. Like you said, it doesn't just go away overnight either. And part of me really wonders, actually, with diseases that we see predominantly in Black, British, African American, British, South Asian communities, diabetes, heart disease, certain cancers, part of me wonders whether that's a result of stress from racism, and then the whole package. Because, and again, there's not been enough research done on this,
right?
So I don't want to claim these things, but I do feel like, and I get very angry when people say, oh, Asian food isn't healthy, Caribbean food isn't healthy. And that's not true. If you think about rice and peas, you think about callaloo soup. I mean, the ackee and saltfish, these are very nutrient rich foods. So how can that be the case when you have many, mainstream British communities really eating very badly, but not having the same disease profiles? So again, this is what makes me think about this. And I don't have the research, and I'm very keen on research, but I'd love to know your sort of perspective and thoughts on that, actually, as I'm saying this.
Yeah, like you said, I think that would be hard to prove. All we can go by is a theory, but like you said, how in the world would that be, different for the same communities that you have? Like you said, all I know is about the U.S. So I'm saying African Americans are definitely like number one in a lot of issues, especially dying from these chronic illnesses. And you wonder why, whether it is some people say the lack of health care, but they also have where they don't have access to some of the foods that will actually help them out. And then some are just, like I said, they're brought up that way. One of the physicians, cardiologists here in the States actually talks about what our mentality of slave food and how, that's what we were brought up on, and continue to bring that through generations for, the 400 years and on. And you said, well, why do you eat that? Well, that's what my mom cooked. That's what my grandmother cooked, So just educating some on the changes in that, but getting still out of that mental space of feeling like you are oppressed is a big thing that we're still trying to conquer in the African-American community. So they know that, again, that you do belong here, you are important, and trying to get over that hump to actually then get to their physical health is sometimes very difficult barrier to overcome.
That is so interesting. I hadn't realized about the quote unquote slave food and the legacy of that. And actually some of that might be going back to the ancestors' food as well, but the history that's been lost because language and food was taken away from several people. Okay, that's very interesting. And I think that's a difference with many South Asian communities, is actually we still have our food, we still have our recipes, and that's been carried on. So yes, thank you for that. And I think maybe similarly with Hispanic, Latinx communities as well, to a degree. Yeah. And I'd really love to know from your perspective, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges for Black, Latinx, South Asian, Pacific Islanders, Native Indigenous communities in accessing holistic support for both mental and physical health around nutrition?
Well, one, the lack of knowledge of the providers. We don't get a lot of education in nutrition necessarily. We have to seek it out. Like, I knew nothing about nutrition. I mean, I don't even remember one class in med school about nutrition and health. It's usually just, lifestyle is something you try first, but you really need to know about how to prescribe these medications. So that would be number one. And then the lack of trust of the healthcare system. So sometimes if you think, especially in the minority communities, that if you go and seek out a therapist or a psychiatrist, you're considered crazy. You don't go out and tell other people your demons or what goes on the inside. Or even in the church, you can just pray it out. We tell people, there's people here that were placed on the earth to actually help you. So just like I'm helping you with your physical health, there's someone that can help you with your mental health, and you need them both in a healthy. You need your mental health healthy and your physical health healthy for you to strive as a actual person. And so I do have that conversation a lot with my patients because sometimes they think that they are weak if they seek out help for their mental health. And I'm like, you're a strong person to ask for help. Because if you try to do it all on yourself, you're going to be weak. So you have to lean on others, just like sometimes others lean on you to actually. And I actually had a patient earlier this week, and I was just like, no, you are not the glue that keeps everything together. You don't think of yourself as the glue. Everyone leans on each other. So please, seek out the help that you need. And sometimes you just need to find the right person to actually speak with. So like I said, I take that very seriously as a primary care physician when people come in and ask. And that's the first thing. As soon as they say something, I said, are you open to, going to therapy and seeking that out? So they know that they don't necessarily have to ask for it. I'm going to ask them, do they want it? And I tell them that it's important, how it affects their physical health, their diabetes, their high blood pressure, because the stress, like you said, that weighs on them. And they need that relief to have. And I tell them that they need someone outside of sometimes their community, someone that knows them, because sometimes we hold back when it's someone that we know, because we don't want them to know everything that's going on deep in our thoughts. And just to have a stranger to let that go with, sometimes that definitely helps a bit more. So it's still a struggle, but I just continue to try to encourage people to seek out that help. And that if you don't find it within your own primary care physician, I tell people continue to look around. You can definitely, there's people out there that definitely want to help you. And if you have to find someone that looks like you to know that, it's important, definitely do that too.
It's so true. Your first point about the providers not linking things together, and this idea that the way that things are done is neutral. It's not neutral. It's from a particular perspective. And I think it's crucial to mention that. And yes, your point about find someone that looks like you, I think, because that builds trust, and you don't have to spend time explaining things, because we know that's such a huge part of the exhaustion, isn't it? And the fear of, I'd rather just sit with it, because to explain it all makes me feel sick. Whereas if I go to someone and they just go, okay, here's the exhale space, we know we feel safe from the minute we put our foot through the door, as it were. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's so true. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I have a lot of people that say that, like, I don't want to have to explain to somebody about, how this situation actually weighs on me, even though it's not a part of me, whether you see all the killings on, social media or on the news, and then how you, like, I have nephews, so just thinking of them, like, going out and driving, and all that weighs on you when you see it, even though it doesn't affect necessarily your family, and they don't want to have to explain that to somebody, like you said. So that was the point of that story. Like, so you just go in, and I never thought about that initially either, until patients came in and they said this happened, and I mean, I immediately felt that, and they knew, they're like, I know you understand what I'm saying. Without having to, go into great detail, just, the one thing that happened, I'm like, oh my goodness. So it's still, like I said, a work in progress. And the more that we can bring it to light, the more that people will actually understand what people are going through.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. And then thinking about workplaces. So we know that this is at various scales, where people have a little bit of weight, it could be around, they're on the cusp of developing diabetes, but it could also be about mental health. It could be on different parts of the scale. And what do you think workplaces can do to talk more about food, health, nutrition, mental health in particular, and connection? So not just weight loss, because I think we're quite obsessed in the West with weight loss, but also how we nourish ourselves. And I talked in the first podcast episode for this series about, when I say nutrition, I mean the nourishment, how we nourish ourselves. And you've mentioned that as well, with resilience and looking after ourselves. What do you think workplaces could be doing more of in this space?
Oh my, that's a big thing there. Especially, I'll speak for the healthcare system, because we're here to help people, yet we can definitely be the worst at that. And I look at our clinic and the medical assistants and the front office staff, of how, they sit all day and they don't get their breaks, and barely time for lunch for my hospital nurses or something like that. And we're not actually, as the administration, things like that, looking at how that's actually causing them to have decrease in their productivity at work. So they may think, oh, well, they just need to show up. But if you had these things in place to where you had access to adequate nutrients, so fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and not, like you said, the donuts that they bring in, or the holiday lunches. I'm not going to get started on that. I got an email about what they're having for the holiday lunch, and I'm like, what in the world? So they need to, like, when they have those things, to offer more healthier choices for people. So I know sometimes they're like, well, people aren't going to eat that if you bring in all, because everybody in my clinic know that I do plant-based. You have to have healthy, don't bring me a cake, you better bring me some fruit, something like that. And I just think that if we had that more mentality, that having that offered for people, that they would do better. And like I said, not better just for themselves, but it actually is a good business move, because, that's what most people think when they're in the workplace. And that people will be happier. Like we already said, they have higher optimism, they have increased mood, like they're happier, more joyful, probably more happy to be there. And then actually it will actually show in their performance at work. And I usually always recommend people go for a walk during their lunch hour, like take that break and, walk around. That's not only good for your physical health, that's good for your mental health. That's something I do to reset for the afternoon. If we have those things in place. One of my other jobs, we had a contest to where we had teams to see how many people who can get the most miles with walking. So things like that people can do to actually get the staff engaged with different healthy behaviors. And like you said, it doesn't help with just physical health. It helps a lot with mental health. And just to show that you're, as a employer, you're concerned about your employees' well-being. Because I talk to the patients a lot about this too. I'm like, if something happens to you and you're sick and you're in the hospital, they don't think twice about replacing you. So you have to take care of yourself. So you have to look out for yourself. But some more providers are actually being more conscious of how it actually affects their employees and want to actually reach out. So definitely have healthier food options available. Let them get their breaks to go on like walks and maybe do like little contests to get the employees engaged in healthy competition.
Yeah, that works really well, doesn't it? And I'm also thinking about hybrid working too, because people might be at home and they might be eating a bit better, but they might not be getting up from their desks. I know that people go from meeting back to back to back. So yeah, really good initiative. And I think having, we've got all sorts of apps and scoreboards online that can take care of these things. So I think that's a great idea. Then Amanda, you're an incredibly busy professional and you carry, I think working in healthcare, you will carry things even as a professional. So I'd love to know, how do you look after your own mental health? And would you like to share your top 3 tips?
So I actually have coaches. I actually just started with a meditation teacher not too long ago. So like I said, mental health was not something that was in the forefront of my mind. I was just trying to get through med school and, survive and thrive from that. So actually learning how to take care of my mental health through meditation. I'm also an avid exerciser. So I love to hike and run and be out in nature, which being in nature does, a lot for our mental health. Where, touching like the trees and the plants, like my meditation teacher talked to me about that, like as I'm walking and like you have that life that's, they can't necessarily talk back to you, but it's life in the plant. And if you touch that life, it gives life to you also. So that's one thing that I picked up. Also, emotional cleansing is another tip I would say to give to people, which I also was taught by my meditation teacher, things that kind of build up, to write it out, own your feelings, write it out, and don't let other people take control of your feelings. You don't say that this person made me feel this way. You just say, I feel whatever it is, and you just write that out, and then you just throw it away. Like you get rid of it so it doesn't build up. It doesn't build up stress for you. And then you do something that's physical to also release that. So she had us doing these breathing exercises where we're like, stuff like that to just push all that out. And it helps physically and mentally. So I would say, definitely eating healthy is a help for your mental tip. So fruits and vegetables every day, doing the emotional cleansing, and going for a walk, touching nature, and then make sure you're connected with other people of similar likes and minds, because that social connection piece also helps, to where if you're with other people that can build you up, and you can also build them up, will also help with your mental health. So these are the things I'm actively working on to try to continue to improve my mental health so I can be physically available for my family, because I don't want to, like I said, die early of any illnesses either. So yeah, that's what I would say for people. Find a routine and stick with it.
And I always love asking that question because every single guest, it's brilliant, has a different tip. There might be some overlap, but your emotional cleansing one, I think, is a great one. And listeners, if you want to know more about nature and mental health, do check out episode number 89, where I talk about research and more information about this. Yeah, absolutely. So Amanda, you're based in the US, but I'm sure there are people who want to know more about your work, and I will, of course, include all the links in the show notes. But how should people contact you? How should people find you if they want to know more?
Yeah, so I have a website at dramandamd.com. I'm also on social media at Dr. Amanda Adkins, and I always spell my last name, A-D as in dog, K-I-N-S, which in the U.S., there's a different type of Atkins that does different nutrition-based things. So I tell them I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum there.
Brilliant. And do check out the show notes for that. And Amanda, it's been such an honor to speak with you today and have this conversation. As always, I learned so much. So really appreciate the time that you've taken for us today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed being here also.
Brilliant, everyone. And listeners, take care. We will be talking about food addiction in the next episode. So please don't forget to join us. And until then, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.